So this will take you through a few ways of compressing video and exporting video, and I'm going to concentrate on the Adobe Media Encoder because that's a really simple way of exporting small clips, doing it in the background, and it works with a number of different pieces of Adobe software. So starting off with After Effects, here's a quick clip. I've got a composition here, and it's the composition that will export. So your export generally will be defined by your work area here. You see this is my work area. There are ways of changing that, but in general your work area is what is going to be exported. Now you can go to File, Export, and then you can add to Adobe Media Encoder queue here. There's also the same option in Composition, and they do the same thing. So I'll add that, and I've got the Media Encoder open, and you can see it's added my composition here. If this takes a long time, it's probably because it's the first time you've opened Adobe Media Encoder, or you've just updated Adobe Media Encoder, in which case this can take a long time because it's got to update all your presets and that kind of thing. The next time you do it, it'll be super quick. So this has come up with my previous preset, so in case this looks different, what you want to do is use system presets in general. People have thought fairly long and hard about various presets that work well together. They're very good to use, at least they're a good thing to use as a starting point. So under the presets here, my preset browser, I've got H.264. This is a very good compressor. It makes things fairly high quality, and it makes things fairly small as well. So these match source options are good because they will match whatever you're throwing at the media encoder. In this case, in After Effects, my source is square. I can look at my settings here. 500 pixels square, 24 frames per second. So that, if I go back to the media encoder, that doesn't really match any of these presets. It's not any of these. These are standard formats. But if I go to match source, and I'm going to say adaptive high bitrate, that's a good one to start on. It's going to be good quality. It might not be the smallest, but it's I want it to be high quality. So again, I can choose it this way as well. I can choose H.264 there. I can then click on this and choose an option. Change it here if I want as well. And the last setting here is where it's going to output, and this may put it somewhere weird to begin with. So I'm going to click on that and choose where I want it. So desktop, After Effects. I'm going to create a new folder called Export. That's a good idea because you can keep all your exports separate from your core project files. You may have a lot of files in here and you don't want all the exports cluttering it up. You can call it whatever you want. By default it'll be your composition name, and say save. If I want to change anything and not use a standard setting, the often the easiest thing to do is to click on a preset, choose a preset, then click on that, and you can go down and play around with some of the fine details here, such as your byte rate, how many passes. I would say you want to know what you're doing though to play around with this, so it's worth experimenting, but presets are a good idea in general to start off with. When you're ready, you just hit the play button here and it'll start encoding. Now that did that really quick because it's a tiny clip. But it is quite a quick encoder in general, so let's see what it's done. There's my export. It's very small, 350k, which is great. If I double click on that, I can see what's going on here, and I can see it's 24 frames per second still, 500 by 500 pixels. It's kept all my core settings the same, and that's really important as well. And it looks, identical to the original in this case. So you may notice I've got another clip in the background here, and I'm going to show you in Premiere how I would export as well. So I'm going to do more or less the same thing. So in Premiere I've got a bit of footage here, a bit of stock footage from NASA. So to export, I'll go to File, Export, Media, and then again by default you'll have something different perhaps. I've done this before so it comes up with this, but I'm going to again use H.264, not the Blu-ray option, this one. And the The settings are similar. You get some more as well. There's things for Facebook and things for Vimeo and YouTube. I'm going to choose a match source high bitrate for now. You can give it an output name there, and you can choose to export immediately, or you can queue it. If I queue it, it will add it to my media encoder. And what you can see is you've got the After Effects one there already. It's got a tick and it says done. So if I play my queue here, it's not going to do this one again. And I get another chance here to play with settings if I want, and I can change all my settings in here. I'm going to keep them as they are. I'm just going to make sure it's in the place I want it. So it's not quite where I want it. I'm going to again make a folder called export and hit save, and then start my queue. And you can carry on working while that's doing it, which is very handy. So it's done that already. Let's go to my Premiere folder, and there is the exported footage, and you can see it's 27 megabytes. I've actually not changed anything from the original one. There's the original footage there. The original footage is a bit bigger, so you can see it's made it smaller. Now, if you play around with this, if you have lower bit rate or medium bit rate, or start to fine tune the settings, you can make this much smaller. The smaller you make it, the lower the quality. So there's a balancing act there. There are some other ways of compressing footage. So one of the simplest ways on a Mac might be you open it in QuickTime and you just say export as. Depending on how big your video is, you're going to get different settings here. If my video were bigger, I might have a 4K setting. I don't, but 1080p, that stands for 1920 by 1080 pixels. P is progressive. You don't really need to worry about that, but that will make a sort of standard HD video. And these are other formats, so slightly smaller things here. So you can export as. It gives you no options other than a number of formats which will be smaller than the video itself. So if, for instance, if I click on here, I can say, let's say this is on QuickTime. I get a format. I get one option here. Otherwise, I just hit save, and you'll see it export. Now, if you're not altering your footage, let's say you export it from Premiere or something else, and you forgot to compress it, or you compressed it at a very high quality format which is too big. QuickTime sometimes is a great quick way of just recompressing it. You can see that's actually made it very similar in size. QuickTime tends to make fairly high quality exports that don't look too compressed, so you can see this still looks great. It's a really good option, and it's super quick and super simple. Another really good option I find is a program called Handbrake. So Handbrake is a free bit of open source software. You can download it from handbrake.fr, I believe. Just Google Handbrake. What you do is you open a bit of source footage. So let's get that original video again. And then you choose where you're going to save it. In this case, the destination is already on the desktop. That suits me. And then again, there are loads of presets here. So I think the general folder is going to have most of what you want. Fast, 1080, 30 frames per second, that sounds good. I might choose that. So you can look at some of these, and you can see that they are changing settings over here as you click on them. What you can do is do things manually and go in and out of here and do things. There are lots of other things on here, like you can export things directly to Chromecast or for Android or for Windows Mobile, etc. You can make things that will play on your Xbox. So it's a really useful bit of software. It can back up DVDs. It can do all sorts of other things. So I use this a fair bit. Again, you can queue stuff. You can add things to the queue and put many things on here. Then start the encoding and walk away. Do something else while it's encoding. When you're ready, you just hit start. Let's choose this one, hit start, and it runs through and starts encoding it. So all of these are brilliant options to make your video much smaller, to make it transferable. If you're uploading to Vimeo or YouTube, you don't want to compress it too much because it's going to get recompressed, but you want to make it small enough to be able to send over the internet. There are formats out there which don't compress at all or do very minimal compression. For instance, the animation codec. That will make an almost perfect video, it will be absolutely huge and might take years to upload to YouTube, or be impossible to fit onto a stick to give to someone, for instance. So compression is important, and have a play. If you find a better way or you got any suggestions, then make a comment.